AI fry, we've been talking about it a lot.
Do we get a chip in our brain?
So tell us about this concept of legal brain.
It's kind of galaxy brain.
We built it for businesses, the end users, which are the end clients of the lawyers.
The Genie 3.0 is so much more powerful.
The product is actually even more useful for law firms somehow.
The legal quality is like amazing. You know, on the benchmarks, we're beating our competitors.
I think the next frontier will be when we can do work faster than we can understand the work we've done.
I think that's sort of happening sometimes because I'm presenting this now, but also I haven't looked at it yet. It was created by AI. I hope it's okay.
Yeah.
I have not opened Figma. It must be weeks now.
Is AI replacing SaaS, and particularly with editor-first apps? Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Genie in the bottle, out the bottle.
Near the bottle.
Out of the bottle. Genie out the bottle.
Yeah.
Out the bottle.
Yeah.
Still working on that one.
Sure, we'll get there. We'll workshop some
We'll get the
things.
domain name someday. Pay 50k for it. No, that's an in-joke because the Genie domain name cost us a lot of money. Well, I'll tell you guys the full story. Basically, when we started, we searched for our domain name Genie.ai, and within about 5 minutes of searching for it, we got an offer through via email offering us the domain name for 20k, and it was available at the time of searching. So yeah, if you're ever buying a domain name, basically buy it right there and then.
Is that why like people say that you should go on Skyscanner on an incognito browser or something because they're on to you? I never quite knew if that was real or not.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a cookies thing.
Somewhere out there, GenieAI is there and they're posting like evil dark side versions of like bad legal AI or something. You know, I hope they're using it. I hope they're doing something good with it.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, yeah. We wanted to start this podcast with just taking a mutual breath in together, just to signify our support for well-being in a world full of AI and information.
We do this at the start of our, like a lot of like Genie team meetings, like everyone sits and does it. We've been doing it for ages. It's really it's really nice when we're together when we do it.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll keep it simple for now. Maybe you guys can join in the audience. So we'll just invite ourselves to sit upright and closing down the eyes, rolling back the shoulders, and we'll do an exhale and then a deep inhale through the nose and a full exhale through the mouth. Oh yeah.
It's really bright when I open my eyes back up with these studio lights, which sort of takes the edge off the grounding.
It adds an edge. Why don't we introduce ourselves? So welcome, Rosie. And do you want to tell the audience who you are in Genie? And maybe just briefly a bit about your background as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been at Genie for coming up to 2 years now, which is very exciting. It's a whole lot of a different place than it was 2 years ago.
Only 2 years, actually. It feels like ages.
Yeah. I want to do like a before and after. I've taken loads of screenshots of the previous products. So like maybe when it gets 2 years, I'll do like a little retrospective. That would be cute. And I have got one of those sort of fake sounding, made up AI startup titles, which I named myself with after a while. My job title is product creator. I always say it with an upward inflection.
Creator?
Product creator, question mark.
It's because it's Chinese.
It's exactly. My father was a product creator, his father before him. You often see like product builder in startups as well. I think it's one of those things where IMO, it's like the job title of the future, but it's so new that the nomenclature hasn't really like fully developed around it. But what it means is it's like a combination of design, product management, product thinking, building things with code now, and kind of strategy. So it's like super multidisciplinary, but before this, my first job title at Genie was lead product designer, and that's what like mostly my career has been in product design. But I've always really loved product management as well. But now I am doing a whole bunch of interesting stuff that I never sort of believed would be possible before. And basically, all of that change has happened in the last 6 months, I would say. Probably. My day-to-day is now completely different than it was before. Just before this, it was just me and my best pal, Claude Code. I was just building something. I've just posted it. You can have a look at it later.
I appreciate that. And your best pal before that was Figma, right? So
it was, man.
Poor Figma, you've left her behind.
It's a really interesting thing with Figma. They had it good for a long time, to be honest.
And now it's time for their downfall.
Yeah, I have not opened Figma in, I don't know, when I last touched a pixel in Figma, it must be weeks now, I think. And previously that used to be the, holy grail. Although I don't think you or I are particularly sad about that. Respectfully, we're not huge Figma fans.
Yeah, and maybe we're going to get right into the sort of weeds here, if that's okay. But there are all these SaaS apps where they're kind of like editor-first apps, where you have like Webflow, Figma, and legal also is an interesting case, but I think it's slightly different. We'll get to that too. But what do you think? Is AI replacing SaaS, and particularly with these editor-first apps?
Yeah.
Even linear.
Yeah. I mean, okay, look at what we were talking about yesterday. You have rebuilt basically all of our stack of ancillary products like Deal and stuff like that. So unfortunately, we are literally replacing it. I don't know. I was at a really interesting breakfast this week, that was sort of organised by some investors with a lot of different AI sort of people there. And actually, not that many of them were building their own internal tools yet, which I was quite surprised by, actually, because it sort of feels a bit like a no-brainer. So maybe we're a little bit ahead, but it's a little bit sort of chaotic Wild West land, doesn't it? But from our perspective, it just makes complete sense to build them ourselves.
Yeah, we just keep pushing with AI, how far can we take it?
Yeah, it's a bit, it's a bit scary, but also, we can make something that's better than Deal, respectfully, in 2 hours.
Yeah, super interesting. I mean, let's cycle back a bit. Let's set the scene for the audience. So, I think it's been about a year now since sort of agents have been out in the form that they are, maybe longer. I must say, we first started using agents a long time before that, but they weren't called agents. You were talking about sort of chain of thought and things like that to chain prompts together and access different services. But in terms of your role and the job at Genie, what was it like when you first joined compared to now? Can you track that change for us?
Yeah, very concretely. So a day in my life, back when I first joined, would be, so some things are still the same. I'm still speaking to users all the time. That is very much constant. That has not decreased with AI. Yeah, I'm still hopping on calls just as much as I ever was. And I don't think, I've got no plans for that to change. So that's kind of the one constant. But I would, get a hunch on a particular user problem from an interview. And then what I would do is I would take that and I would go into Mixpanel and I would sort of you know, like panning for gold. I would like scrape around trying to come up with some like tables and like bend the data to my will through sheer sort of brute force and hope, trying to get like a signal from the noise for ages, and maybe I'd get something and I wouldn't be super sure about it, but I'd, you know, you run with it, and then I'd, you know, hop into Figma and try and prototype something up, something simple, starting with sort of, you know, like medium fidelity, and then following that like linear process all the way through. And it worked. It's a process that worked for me for many years, and it's not that process that I've just described would have been the same process 2 years before that, 2 years before that, 2 years before that. You know, it was a relatively established sort of process of this is how you do product design. And all of that's just sort of completely fallen away in the last 2 years. So now what I do is, again, I still talk to the users. That will not be replaced. But then if I've got a hunch and I think, you know, that I've got a thread I want to pull at, then I will open, you know, Claude desktop app, and I will use the Mixpanel MCP combined with
baby.
Boom, combined with our own amazing internal tool. I don't even know what we would call the bug finder now. It's become so many things. How would you describe what that is?
Yeah, like internal AI knowledge base brain of
observability
product
and
activity.
Product data. Basically, it's like the internal tool that we use to spot bugs, look at user behavior, figure out what's going on. And this is a completely new tool. We never had that. But I feel like I was always dreaming of being able to talk to my data in natural language. Before Genie, I've had a really sort of long and loving relationship with Content Square at like several places I've been to before, and really have been, you know, pushing for and advocating for Content Square. But I was still having to go in and try and find the pattern and investigate and stuff like that. Whereas now I can just speak to my data in natural language and it will go and look at patterns and stuff for me. Now, it's not perfect. It's still, you know, an issue that we've got in both sort of Mixpanel and Bug Finder is like, it can take a couple of tries to get the data right, just like before. The big difference is I'm not going in there and doing exploratory, trying to find clues. I can just go straight in and ask specific questions, and it will look at the sort of macro patterns for me, and it will pull out the like themes and stuff like that. So it's really powerful, and we used it. So I did recently did a big deep dive on. So we launched our Genie 3.0, the new Genie, our baby. Yeah, we were incredibly stoked on that one. We've been working on it for ages, and that went live to all free users. Maybe 6 weeks ago, was it?
Yeah, 2 months.
Yeah, that was a big deal for us.
It was a big deal. It was a landmark moment in my life.
It was before and after. Genuinely, that was a big deal for us.
It is my new birthday.
Exactly, Rafie, like the Queen. You know? And so I did wanted to do a big sort of data retrospective on, okay, all of the new people who've come in and only ever known this new Genie, or the new free users that we've had come in since we, you know, did this new big launch. What are they doing? You know, what is their journey like? What sort of documents do they want? What sort of, you know, how are they working? Where are they dropping out? What are the behaviors that are more likely to result in them upgrading? Stuff like that. And so I was just able to like go in and like talk back and forth and ideate with the data.
Yeah, crazy.
And pull stuff out. And we just did, yesterday, we had a really great ideation session using that data as like scene setting, and then we like went through, I like screen shared, we went through the actual journey of like what a new user sees, and then we did like ideation on like how to improve that, and then like that is now all immediately like in linear within the same day, it's posted, you know, like engineers can now pick that up and start working on it. So it's just like stuff is incredibly compressed and is just like happening a lot quicker. Although sometimes my brain gets tired. Does your brain get tired?
Yeah. So AI Fry, we've been talking about it a lot.
Yeah.
The sort of default way of working now is you've got your 5 or 6 agents running on different screens, and you're context switching, trying to restart the prompt for one and making sure that all your agents are constantly running. And if one of my agents is not running, I feel like I'm underproductive.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think AI Fry is a real issue.
And switching also, if you've got like several things running in parallel that are like on different topics.
Yeah.
You're constantly every 2 minutes cycling between 3 topics. Every 2 minutes you're changing topic, which is like the opposite of what people say that you should do, like deep dive and concentrate on one thing.
Yeah.
So I find sometimes I use that like thinking time instead of going and looking at my other thing that's pinged. I'll just go and have a little lie down on the floor.
Yeah, lie down on the floor is underrated.
Actually. Remind myself it's a marathon, not a sprint. I've been advocating like maybe sometimes go and smell a flower while it's working.
Yeah. I mean, how have you found that like mental health wise now compared to pre-agents?
Do you know what? I wouldn't trade and I wouldn't go back because I feel the real benefits of feeling so much more independent, like so much more is within my control.
Yeah.
I can like do stuff. There's so many things by which I am not blocked anymore. So that is incredibly like good for your psyche. Yeah. I think.
Yeah.
In one way. The only tricky bit is sometimes is like, it's like, so you know how there's a bit of a parallel, right, between in terms of like literally the AI world, there are physical constraints in that you can only build so many GPUs, right? And it's a physical hardware constraint now for the first time in ages. In a similar way, I feel sometimes my physical hardware constraints. I feel the fans like whirring, and I need to go and take care of the hardware. And it's weird that it's like a parallel between that's also what's happening like in the industry.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like we can innovate as much as we want, but in the end, we're constrained by the physical and natural limitations of humans and the physical world. Yeah. And like our attention span and our window of sort of the aperture of attention is limited. Yeah. Are you the sort of person that in general, if you're going into the kitchen to do one job, you'll like pick something else up or like switch and do like, will you just spend 10 minutes doing the one job you intended to do at the start of the 10 minutes? Or do you like, you see something on the floor and you pick it up, or like there's a dish and you do the dish, and like, I get distracted all the time, like switching tasks one-on-one, and I think this is not exactly helping that pattern of behavior, because I'm switching and getting distracted by the next thing, like literally every 2 minutes. Yeah, I think that's also the thing with tech and SaaS platforms. There's so many platforms now, so many passwords and 2FA and authentication, and it's like every step you can get sidetracked into 20 different things. So to make it through those 20 layers, each containing 20 possibilities, and to follow your one path to your end goal is like quite a struggle. And how do you think we can like get around that? So if we acknowledge that we've got these like hardware limits, right? And do you think that like we're gonna get to a place where, you know, like
how do we put guardrails around that? Is it the 4-day working week? Is it the mandatory flower smelling hour? Do we get a chip in our brain to increase the CPU? How do we sort that?
Yeah, I've got kind of a good answer and a bad answer.
Give me the bad one first.
The bad one is the one that I hope doesn't happen, but I think it unfortunately will happen unless we change the modus operandi, the objective of society, away from economic growth to well-being, and that is the chip in the head.
Yeah, man.
Because, I'm finding myself lazy to talk and especially type.
Yeah.
In terms of prompting AI and just typing, because we're seeing results so quickly, so fast, and so much being built so fast. There's just why do I even have to type to this thing?
Yeah, I was a bit late coming into the office this morning because number one, I needed my big screen, but also I knew I wanted to be doing a load of voice prompting, and it was too cringe to come in and do it. So I was like, let me just do that in the privacy of my own home for a while, because I know it will be 5 times faster.
Yeah.
And then let me come into the office afterwards.
Yeah, it's can I do one more prompt, one more set the agents off for one more run before I go?
Yeah. What is that your bad answer?
It's the bad answer.
All right, what's your good answer?
The good answer is what I sort of was hoping to show or try to show in the quarterly meetup, which is abstraction. So we have to abstract ourselves away from the day-to-day work faster than AI progresses. Meaning, right now, most of us are prompting agents to do long-range tasks, but we're still prompting and going between our agents every 5 minutes, right? But what if we don't even have to do that? What if we have an agent doing running all the other agents? So maybe agent of agents, for example. So that's another layer of abstraction. So we have to keep abstracting. So we do less and less work as more and more work is created.
Yeah.
If we don't ride that wave of abstraction, you're going to feel overwhelmed.
Because it's we're getting partly there at the moment. Yesterday, so let's say this ideation session that we had yesterday. So I was, we together were able to get a list, a long list of ideas of things that we knew that if we change in the product and we improve, it'll be really good. We were able to get those quite quickly. But then once you've got them, you've actually got to work on them. Yeah. And so if I had tried to go through in the past, I would have sat down and I would have made designs for all of those 10 things. I would have made a Figma design for all of those 10 things, and that would have taken me a week, maybe. And I don't know if it's fully going to work, but we've been trying this at Genie, right? We've been trying to get engineers to fully own the product end-to-end way of thinking. So once we had those 10 ideas, I didn't go and I didn't make designs for any of them. I put them as tickets on Linear with as much context as I possibly could.
Yeah.
And I was and posted on Slack, hey guys, these are ready for you, you know, pick it up. So, but then am I not just shifting that onto engineers that way? Or maybe they're getting their agents to do it and they're able to do it a lot faster. Do you know, if I'm coming up with ideas faster than I can flesh them out.
Yeah, which is good, because we should be able to build as fast as we can ideate.
Yeah.
The real sort of, I think the next frontier will be when we can do work faster than we can understand the work we've done. Because we were saying the limitation is human attention, right?
Yeah.
So right now, work is being done up to the limit of us understanding it.
Yeah, I will say, Rafie, I think that's sort of happening sometimes because literally I think I could name several occasions in the last month where I've been in meetings and people have been I'm presenting this now, but also I haven't looked at it yet. It was created by AI. I hope it's okay.
Yeah. Or going to the product and actually even talking to Nitish.
He does all the time.
Well, I was going to say we thought that a specific way of doing track changes on our legal documents wasn't possible in the product.
Yeah.
But it was.
Yeah.
And like, we weren't aware we even had that feature.
Yeah.
So it's like, that will happen too, right? The product gets just built so fast that we don't even know what's,
I
what's
was
being
really
built.
pleased we found out we had that feature, by the way. Can I just say,
It's a critical
that
feature.
really felt like a win. I was incredibly pleased.
I was like, great, we already have it. Yeah. So where does all this go? Like, if we extrapolate, what happens from here?
You mean to humanity in general? Because I do have thoughts on that.
All right, let's touch on that. Let's go to the macro, then we'll come back micro to businesses.
All right. So, cards on the table here. I feel like it would be amazing if, because what we're talking about is like these levels of abstraction, right? And we're talking about ultimately like one-person businesses. We've spoken about this a lot. We think that it's going to be single-person teams and stuff like that. The hope would be that we live in this like age of abundance where like, no one has to work because it's all, done and automated and stuff like that. And people can just follow their curiosity and follow whole ideas if they're curious, which would be amazing, which could be like the best thing that's ever happened to humanity. And we all become like artists and poets and stuff like that. And I don't think it's insane to say that that is a possibility. It's just a little bit tricky when within the economic system of capitalism to imagine that, being done in a way that isn't exploitative. So if we can sort of, move to a post-capitalist economic model.
Yeah, that's the move.
And, then it would be amazing.
Yeah, I'm glad you're saying that, because I said that on Sky News a couple of years ago when we raised our round, and the presenter scoffed at me. But
it's true though. How else are we, if we can potentially have an age of abundance where, humans don't need to do anything, that's only going to go well under a system by which people don't need to be extracted for profit that gets gone to a very small few. With, this potential age of abundance could go in a very dark direction if it, only benefits a certain class of people.
Yeah, I'll tell you sort of my additional view on that, which is in order for us to move away from economic growth as the sort of objective of society, we need to first solve security and therefore morality. We're going big here, we're going philosophical. But because with international security being such a risk for everyone, unfortunately you need innovation to create, unfortunately, like weapons, defense, so that you have a sufficient deterrent against aggressor countries. So until that's, like when that's solved, then you don't need such aggressive innovation, right? Then you don't really, you just have a good standard of living, you share that across everyone, job done.
Yeah, and we're just writing poems all day at that. Although wasn't it so interesting though what happened like in the US with around those kind of like autonomous AI weapons, with Anthropic being like, no, we're not going to do it. And then OpenAI being like, we will. Of
course they will.
We'd love to do it. We were hoping you'd ask, actually. And then, like, since then, I don't know, man. Correlation, causation, I don't know. But, like, now, since then, everyone loves Anthropic.
Yeah.
And, no one likes OpenAI.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, good for Anthropic in that way. Anthropic, that's not the crazy one. Like, they're making over $1 billion a day.
Yeah.
Nuts.
Yeah. And yet they are also subsidising, they're partly subsidising the cost of, this was another thing I wanted to talk about, was cost. Like, the price that most people pay for the tokens in their Claude plan is, nothing like what it's actually costing Anthropic to make it. And they're managing to make all of that profit, but still a lot of people are not paying the actual cost for what the tokens were. Now, I think with the API, it's different. I think the API is a lot closer to cost price, which we know we are paying
a lot of money.
Just a lot of money, a lot of money. But also, like, I would say one of the biggest thing that we're dealing with as a company at the moment is how we figure out the cost of tokens and a business model by where we like can pass the value onto the user, but like make the tokens efficient because, so we just rebuilt the platform, right? And now the Genie 3.0 is so much more powerful. The legal quality is like amazing. You know, on the benchmarks, we're beating our competitors. It's, our users are loving it, except what we've given them is an amazing product that costs so much more in tokens than the previous one.
It's token heavy. I'm curious, actually, the viewers at home, if you're listening, are you guys facing, when you're building your own products or buying other products, are you facing high token costs? Is it expensive to run your products? And what do you think about sort of the pricing models around, you know, token limitations? Because it's hard to know how many tokens you've used in some of these apps, and we have similar sort of challenges. So yeah, drop us a comment down below and I'll make sure I respond.
I'm very, very curious to know how other people are dealing with it. Like, because we just moved to token-based pricing, and that was a really interesting process of trying to figure out how many tokens we should allow on which plan and what can you do with this amount of tokens. And I won't lie, it has been a little bit hairy. There's been some learning that we have done. And in a way, it's really great because the users are now loving the product we've built so much that when they run out of tokens, they're fuming.
Yeah, they are angry, and it is often business critical as well.
Yeah. And I'm also curious as well about sort of like, you know, what you think about in the industry. So at the moment, the cost of tokens is also being really heavily subsidized by like VCs.
Yeah.
And that makes sense for now because it's like a land grab. And, you know, now like market share is super important because, you know, no one has yet quite won the space race in terms of, you know, models and stuff like that. But do you think that at a certain point, VCs and other people are gonna stop subsidizing token costs, and what happens after that?
I think, you know, you've got to hope and assume that token costs do go down and things get more efficient. The trouble is, whilst the models may get more efficient and costs may go down per like inference, they're also getting like much bigger and much more complex and doing longer range tasks, bigger context widths. I think the latest DeepSeek model is like something crazy, like 300 gigabytes on your computer or something.
I can't even process what that.
Yeah. So you've got these competing effects. You've got kind of Moore's law of tokens or models getting more efficient, compute power getting more efficient, but models getting more complex. But I also think there is a bright side to this, which is, in theory, LLM providers like Anthropic, OpenAI, they should be automating themselves or putting themselves out of a business. Because as they get smarter and smarter models, sooner or later, people are going to start being like, oh, actually, like the previous model was smart enough for me, and I can just about run it on my computer now. So I'm just going to get this open source model and use that.
Well, this is one of the points that people were making at this breakfast I went to this week. Like, you know, there's a view that you could say that maybe it's not like the big frontier labs that are going to win. It's, you know, the people who were able to do similar good enough work, but make it cheaper ultimately in the end.
That's quite interesting. Yeah, I like that. And, you know, since we're a legal AI company, what's your view on the legal industry? Do you see, the question we often get asked is, do you see AI replacing lawyers? Or do you see it working in tandem with lawyers? And yeah, what do you see happening inside businesses as well?
Yeah, so right, I think it's a really interesting question to answer from Genie's perspective, because we are a legal tool primarily for non-lawyers, right? We have been, you know, recently we have not been particularly marketing for, we've not been marketing to lawyers really. We've not been designing the product around lawyers. We've been really thinking about that like business, commercial user and designing for them and sort of trying to get the product to them. And yet still, we got so many lawyers using our product.
Yeah, lawyers and law firms. I mean, just to jump in there, I think because we built it for businesses, the end users, it's like so much more capable in terms of automation because they don't have a lawyer necessarily. And it's built particularly for businesses, which are the end clients of the lawyers, that the product is actually even more useful for law firms somehow. And that's why, one of our highest usage user who's spending an insane amount of tokens on our side is a law firm.
Yeah.
Since you speak to a lot of users, what do you think is like the typical or main problems that, let's say, an in-house legal team and a commercial team face in a business?
80% of our new users that arrive on Genie, 80% of them they come through one really specific journey. They are Googling around or talking to ChatGPT and they're trying to find one specific contract. So we have these like contract landing pages that people who come to us that way, they come via these landing pages. So they're clearly like just looking for something that they don't have. They need a certain type of contract and they need to be able to like customize it and edit it and stuff like that. And that's where a lot of people come in from. They come in with a one-time need. They've got a specific project that they're trying to do and it's timely and they need this contract to like make it go forward. And that is by far and away how most people come to Genie. And what makes them stay is the fact that, yes, you can get your contract now, but you can also use your documents as context to like edit and do good work on the contracts you already had. You were already doing this stuff. But we do things that Anthropic and, Claude Code and the other big models can't do because we combine our sort of the legal training that we've done on our models on how many clauses? Like millions?
Millions, yeah.
Sort of combined with the ability to bring in your own context that's already there. By the way, we're working on now tapping even more business context. Like everything you do as a business in Slack, in wherever you're working, be able to bring all that context in, which you can do on, like with MCPs and stuff in Claude, but then also being able to actually have a tool that's like you can actually see and edit and actually really touch and feel and get involved in your document in a way that you just can't do when it's sitting behind an MCP.
So tell us about this concept of legal brain. What does that mean for Genie in the market?
Yeah. So the idea is that the most valuable thing that your legal team can do for you, the biggest value of your legal team is the stuff that's inside their heads, right? It's or even the business team. Think about a commercial person who's been here 10 years and has not got a legal background, but has done 5 million deals and knows exactly how you work. Now, it's their knowledge that is the most useful. And it's the knowledge that's contained in your contracts. Your contracts are a huge source of knowledge about how your business works now and how you used to work and how you've changed and how you work differently with different counterparties. And you'll say yes to things with one counterparty and not another. So the concept of bringing the legal brain into Genie is hooking up every context input that we have. So those documents aren't just like flat things anymore. They tell a story. The different versions of a document tell a story, At the moment, we're working on sort of looking at taking one document all the way from the start to the finish and the changes that happen between each version of that document tell a story about how you work and how you work with your counterparties and stuff like that. And document context information and behavioral information from how you redline, how you negotiate, pulling all of that together so none of it is lost, and any brand new staff member can like tap into that from the first day they land. It's kind of galaxy brain.
Sounds amazing.
Vibes.
I'm sold.
Boom.
How can I buy it?
You
GenieAI.
yeah, go to yeah, exactly.
Go to GenieAI.co and pay us £10 billion.
Yeah, if possible.
I mean, £56 a month at the least.
We'll settle for 56. That's fine.
Nice. So yeah, before we close, is there anything else you want to add? Anything on your mind, or any advice for those working in sort of design and product roles that you want to share?
Yeah, one like really cool and interesting thing that I never really had to deal with before, but is now huge in sort of my daily world, is the challenge, the blessing and challenge of trying to design for probabilistic systems. So like back in the day, you could make your little prototype and your little click through. It was often when you're prototyping on Figma, it was like click throughs. You know, like heat map on this button and it takes you to the next page and it takes you to the next page. When you're designing for probabilistic AI systems that you have no idea how they're going to work, it is just a completely different game.
Yeah.
And you can't control the system. You can create the sandbox that people are going to work in, but you've got to let go of that control as a designer of how the system works. So number one, it's a good idea to just like let that ego surrender to the fact that you can't control it. And then it means you kind of need to shift your focus because you don't know what the outputs are going to be like. So that means that stuff like dog fooding the product becomes even more important. We do that a lot. We were doing it yesterday. We dog food the product a lot. You've got to like live in it and really, really use it and really be trying to use it a lot so you can see what the outcomes are like because you have no idea.
What about cat fooding?
Cat fooding, no, I swore off that years ago.
Yeah.
That life's behind me.
No one needs that.
So you've got to like really be using it a lot more, and that's why the data tools that we've spoken about now become super important, because I can now say like, help me understand the sorts of responses the system has been giving.
Yes.
Where is it not being, a lot of the actual important work that the tool does is nothing to do with like design or UX. It's like in the system prompt. So as designers, you need to know how to, and product people, you need to know how to work with the system prompt. You need to know how to change things. You know how to like do evals to make sure you haven't broke stuff. You need to build trust with your engineering department so that they will let you, touch all of that stuff. So it really like shifts how you work as a product person.
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting point. The world is probabilistic. And on that very probable note,
we should probably
end the podcast.
Yeah.
So I probably, but also certainly thank you, Rosie, for your time. I'm sure everyone's really enjoyed your insights. And we will see you on the next episode. Please like and subscribe. I've been instructed to say that.
Yeah. There's a man standing behind the camera now with a look in his face that says, please like and subscribe.
And a knife. No, too far. Cool. We'll see you on the next one. Boom. Yeah, well done.
Boom. I don't feel tired at all.
Good, yeah.
That was great.